The Pittsburgh Steelers have a serious problem as following what was an absolutely despicable loss yesterday against the Chargers. Mike Tomlin has come out and not only spoke out and revealed the truth behind the loss, but the Steelers have a problem that not a lot of people are talking about as new details have emerged. To break down exactly what this problem is and discuss most importantly what it means going forward, as well as a bunch of other updates as things are getting very interesting in Pittsburgh. A ton to go over on this episode, folks. But before we get into it all, if you're part of the 67 or so percent who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Steelers content. Folks, yesterday was a horrible game. There's no way to go, about it. They had a really bad offensive game, an okay defensive performance for some of the game. They ultimately lost 25-10. But the point of this, of course, loss, or I guess rather the bigger story of this loss was how it happened. You're going up against a Chargers team that has been very hot. But folks, Mike Tomlin came out, let's dive right into it, and spoke out about the loss and discussed some very interesting things that have fans a little bit livid. So let's start with this. Steelers Mike Tomlin sends warning to the NFL. The NFL world better watch out for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You might be looking at this headline and saying, they got destroyed rather by a Chargers team. What did Mike Tomlin say? And he said, you can see here, well, first of all, of course, they lost. They're now 5-4 with the Ravens creeping up very close. But head coach Mike Tomlin isn't worried. He's fired up, which you can see in his post-game press conference at SoFi Stadium, but he doesn't seem too worried. And he basically spoke about how they have to be better, but they certainly weren't better tonight. And he essentially goes on to say about how you can see here what gives Mike Tomlin confidence that the team doesn't have necessarily a big problem and that is going to be better. 53 years of life, and particularly in this business. And he basically wanted to say that the team, even though they lost the game, it's just one game at the end of the day. And fans are not only livid at this because of the fact that this has been a problem now for years, but they are now only one game ahead of the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC North. And obviously Baltimore, they now got back Lamar Jackson, all these different things. Pittsburgh, in Week 11 next week, play the Bengals. This is going to be the deciding factor of their season. But this has been a problem now for a while. And I don't want to sit down here and blame Aaron Rodgers for the whole season or anything that's happening now. They're still first in the division. Let's keep some context here. But Aaron Rodgers did have a very bad game, like a career worst game. You can see there his completion percentage was the second lowest of his career, yards per pass, third lowest of his career in any game, and his passer rating was abysmal. And he's had a really good year thus far, right? But yesterday, of course, he overthrew DK Metcalf a bunch of times. He was missing point blank, and the O-line didn't do him a ton of favors. But this has been a problem with Mike Tomlin now for years, and it's not necessarily the offense. The defense, I think, played pretty good for most of the game. Like, they gave the Steelers a chance, and that's all you can really, they gave the offense a chance, rather, and that's all you can really ask for at this point, especially against a really good Chargers team. But Aaron Rodgers struggled, but then more importantly here, it was a by committee struggle. Now, you can see here, there's obviously a lot of storylines about Mike Tomlin and how bad he has been. But you could see this graphic that they put up during the game yesterday, and kind of something that encompasses everything that the Steelers fans are feeling. This is his 19th season as the head coach, with no losing seasons as the Steelers head coach, which is the longest streak to begin a head coaching career in NFL history. And you're probably looking at that and thinking that, it depends how long you've been a Steelers fan, but that's really good, really bad. It's obviously a good stat, but they haven't done anything in the playoffs in a very long time. And this kind of is the biggest issue here. It's not just the offense. And yesterday it was. The offense was the reason they lost the game. Yesterday, you can blame certain parts of the defense. I thought Jaylen Ramsey at some points looked a little bit rough, but overall, like at safety looked okay. Joey Porter, there was some, obviously Darius Slay went down with an injury, and we had, the next man up mentality and played really well. The problem is, you can never get both clicking. When the offense is going well, the defense is putrid. When the defense is going well, the offense, is putrid. And last week against the Colts, we saw when both things go together, the defense was rocking, Aaron Rodgers was rocking, the things were in really good shape. But they didn't go out and get another wide receiver, which DK Metcalf is getting held to minimal yardage every single game for the past few weeks because, again, they didn't go out and they didn't acquire Rashid Shaheed like the Seahawks did. They didn't acquire Jacoby Myers, and there were reports that they went for it. They tried to. They offered the same offers as some of the other teams, but they didn't get it done. And yesterday, they were 0 for 9 on third downs up until that point, which, that's hard to do, right? And again, it was on Aaron Rodgers yesterday, a bit of the O-line. There was a couple drop balls here and there, but most of it was on Aaron Rodgers. But the point is, at some point, Mike Tomlin's going to have to take responsibility for it because the team now, they're not in a free fall necessarily. They're still first in the division, and the Colts win kind of saved them, but they're losing. We think back to the Bengals loss even. The defense is starting to look a little bit better, but now the offense is starting to, go downhill a little bit. And You have everybody speaking out. There's already been some rumors and reports about trading Mike Tomlin, which sounds as crazy as it is, and firing Mike Tomlin. All these different things that could happen. For him to come out and send a warning and saying that he's super confident. I mean, you do want your coach to say that, but it's hard as a Steelers fan and as Steelers fans in general to, given the lack of success here in the playoffs ever since the Super Bowl win, to really buy into that. Now, Aaron Rodgers also spoke out on his horrible performance and said, I expect to play great every single week, and this was not my best performance. I got to play better, whatever it takes. If it's better checks, if it's better throws, whatever it is, I got to play better. We got to bounce back. We got a division opponent next week. We're 5-4. We're ahead by a game in the division. We got to play better on offense for sure. And obviously, he's a veteran quarterback. He knows it was kind of on him. And quite frankly, I don't want to, it's kind of rough, blaming Mike Tomlin in general. I think he is one of the issues, kind of over the overlying issue on this team, or the underlying issue rather on this team. But for Aaron Rodgers, he just had a bad game, and it's one that was a very unfortunate time to have a bad game. So the defense looked okay, but he couldn't. You can see there, you could throw the ball in the dirt every play and have a higher passer rating than this. He was just missing his targets. He was having a rough game. Shout out to the Chargers defense. They were getting to Aaron Rodgers very quickly, slicing through that O-line, and it led to 0 for 9 on third downs. But they should have had a lot more third down conversions. There were a lot of open receivers that just didn't get the ball because of Aaron Rodgers' poor throws. And you can see here from Dan, he said, last night you should worry the Steelers and their fans. And I want you guys to let me know down below in the comments, should they be worried? Obviously, there's two ways to look at it. They haven't played great football as of late. They started off really hot. They've been pretty rough. They've been under 500 or around 500 in their past 5 or 6 games. At the same time, you are first in the division, like Aaron Rodgers said. And there is some encouraging factors like the defense, like some of the guys stepping up, Joey Porter, all these guys. But at the same time, you again didn't get another wide receiver to pair with DK Metcalf, which is leaving you with Calvin Austin as your secondary wide receiver, who broke free a little bit. But we saw Roman Wilson getting a garbage time touchdown, but running a route earlier in the game where Aaron Rodgers threw it, and the route wasn't. Not that it wasn't properly ran, but he took a weird route to it to make it so he wasn't caught. Like, those are mistakes that young wide receivers are going to have. If you would have gotten one more wide receiver at the deadline, that would have opened up DK Metcalf. Because they were showing it in the broadcast yesterday. They're throwing double teams at DK Metcalf. They're making it so he can't make a difference. And Jaylen Warren had a great game, but no one else is able to. And they're not using Jonnu Smith a ton, though, again, Jonnu Smith was really, really good with the Dolphins there a couple of years ago. But at the same time, Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington. They have Darnell Washington, who only got 1 reception. It was just a bad game for the offense. I do think there's encouraging signs here, but again, the problem is they're sticking with what they're doing, and they know it's not working right now. The offense, I think, will figure itself out, but not getting a wide receiver might come back to haunt them in the near future, as you could argue it did yesterday. But the good news is they're still 1 game up on the Ravens, who are creeping up in this game against the Bengals. The Bengals are only 2 games back, so things can change very quickly. Joe Burrow's returning to practice, so it's going to be interesting. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.